Named after Townsend Harris, the first American consul to Japan, the Harris Treaty of 1858 was a watershed moment in Japanese history. Also referred to as the Treaty of Amity and Commerce, this agreement marked the first time that Japanese officials conceded to the United States the establishment of permanent residence in Japan. Earlier in 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry had sailed from the United States to Japan and demanded that Japanese officials agree to establish trade. Threatening to take military action if they refused, Perry returned to Japan the following year, and in the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854, he secured 2 ports on the Japanese coast and the right to station a consul in Shimoda. While Perry's negotiations marked the first significant American entrance into Japanese commerce, however, it was the Harris Treaty that firmly implanted the United States into Japanese affairs. The Harris Treaty not only opened an additional 8 ports to trade, but also seized from the Japanese tariff autonomy and significant legal jurisdiction over the treaty ports. Japan's government held no authority in setting the low and fixed rate tariff and could not change them. Furthermore, American citizens were granted the ability to live and trade in those ports as well as extraterritoriality, a gesture that assured any American living in Japan the right to be tried in a foreign consular court under foreign law in the event that he was accused of a crime in Japan. With the signing of the Harris Treaty, Japan subtly demonstrated that the Tokugawa era was quickly coming to an end, and that 2.5 centuries of peaceful isolation from the Western world was no longer a viable option. Although the Japanese would later consider the Harris Treaty an unfair treaty, the relationship between Harris and the Japanese was not as belligerent as the one Perry had held. While Perry was known for his brute, humorless demeanor, Harris was specifically chosen for the consul position because of his exceptional ability to demonstrate tolerance, sympathy, and patience. In numerous recommendation letters to President Pierce in 1855, Harris was praised as the ideal candidate for the job. One letter read, "Mr. Harris possesses great business experience, extensive and varied information on commercial subjects, and is unusually well qualified to discharge the duties of a consular or diplomatic situation in the East." Harris himself expressed deep desire to be selected for the role. In fact, he had requested to Perry to allow him to be a part of Perry's Japan expedition, but Perry had refused. In a letter to the President, Harris wrote, "You may rely, sir, that I will not ask for leave to visit my friends or resign the place for any reasons of dislike to the country, but will devote myself zealously to the faithful discharge of my duties." Nonetheless, Harris had a task to achieve and remained steadfast in his demands. He made his case to Japanese daimyo Hotta Masayoshi that the British and French were actively seeking to secure trading privileges too, and that they would crush Japan in the outbreak of war over these privileges. Harris then asserted, "The President is of opinion that if Japan makes a treaty with the United States, all other foreign countries will make the same kind of treaty, and Japan will be safe thereafter." Harris understood that the President had been disappointed with the limited privileges that were granted after Commodore Perry's negotiations, and wrote in his journal that the stipulations outlined in the Treaty of Kanagawa were, quote, "disgraceful to all parties engaged in making them, that so as far as trade was concerned, those documents were not worth the paper which they were written, that were I to sign any such conditions, the President will recall me in disgrace." As such, negotiations between Harris and Japanese officials lasted for several months. Finally, on July 29, 1858, the treaty was signed. Relative to Perry, Harris's interaction with the Japanese was far more diplomatic and did not involve any military threat. One tribute to Harris read, "His record is one of marvelous tact and patience, and of steady determination and courage, of straightforward uprightness in every respect that is not exceeded by any in the history of international relations of the world. He won the confidence and trust of the Japanese." Nonetheless, the Imperial Court of Japan felt immense trepidation upon signing off on the Harris Treaty. In one letter from the Imperial Court, it was written that, "The American affair is a great sorrow to our divine land, and a matter truly vital to the safety of the state." While the excursions of Commodore Perry are remembered as establishing contact with Japan, the significance of the Harris Treaty should be remembered as equally monumental in the narrative of Japanese-American relations.